This next guy that I'm going to invite up, Brian, if you could come up, grab a seat, make yourself at home. We're going to talk about something specific as it relates to subbies. Have any of you had any issues or challenges with subbies over the years? Yeah, everyone. So Brian is up from Melbourne, huh? Yeah, you do need a mic, actually. There you go. So, mate, thank you so much again for offering to have a conversation. Could you just introduce yourself, tell the guys where you're from, what you do?
Yeah, Brian Cullen, I'm from Melbourne. I operate an office there in Baldwin North, which is about 6 or 7 k's from the CBD in the eastern suburbs. We custom build single homes and also duplex developments in that region, and all our work these days is really, really local to that area. So our key suburbs are Camberwell, Surrey Hills, Glen Iris and Baldwin North. We had a turnover last year in the $5 million range. We're going to go through that number by a couple more million this year. And for us, in terms of job numbers, that would be about between 10 and 12 locations for the year in total.
Okay, cool. So you've gone through some growth, and as a result of that, you decided you needed to do something with your subbies. You needed to review how you deal with them, and you came up with like a trades pack. Tell us a bit about that. What made you decide to introduce this new process for your trades?
Yeah, well, look, we're going through. I've been working with Kurt now for just over 12 months, and my background is actually in property development, residential property development, a lot of townhouses, some single home, and also some low-rise stuff in similar region. So from a construction perspective, I don't have the commercial background that some others have. So we've been working through item by item, area by area within our operation to improve. And we had been quite successful initially with a lot of growth in the latter part of last year, so we had loaded up on a lot of work. So we had some work to do with our processes to handle that. And I had a big incident. So we had already started flagging. We were looking for better terms with our trade, so we started to make inquiries after the break, being the beginning of this year, to look to try and shift all of our trades onto a 30-day process, a 30-day payment process from date of invoice.
Does anyone got 30 days, trades at 30 days? Nice one.
Yeah, it makes life easier when you've got that, that's for sure. But so we started the process, and we were having a lot of meetings and making the pitch about why, and we're growing the business and we want you to come with us and so on and so forth. We had a big incident, a big loss in April of this year, where my site manager actually passed away, and we have a team of 6 internally, so it's quite a significant moment in our business and personal life for this year, and he passed away suddenly at home one night. And so from that point, not related to trade situation, but we had a really hectic period in our lives, myself and my wife, for that. Probably, I think in terms of trying to get reorganised, I thought it might take a few weeks, but you're in a bit of a fog, and it probably took us a few months. I didn't have a new site manager for 8 weeks. And as Chris was saying earlier, I don't know if it was 100, could have been 200, I don't know what I worked, but I just worked every day to make sure that we kept things together, and also paid our bills critically, and really looked after our team to make sure that it kept working well during that period. I approached especially the core members of my team at that stage and said, well, the time has come, I really want you to help me. This is the moment where I need your support through this period. Yes, that was all great, but I just found, now that I was back on the sites, that I wasn't getting that in return at all. I was getting the general complaints that we all normally have. I was just getting more of the same. I was looking after someone's group of carpenters, someone's plumbers. They weren't being accountable, and they weren't working off the plan. They don't read the plan. It was being just general rubbish sort of phone calls is what I was getting. So I got was probably in that mode at that point where it was very easy for me to be less emotional about it, and I just started firing bullets everywhere at that point, which on reflection I could be a lot more calculated about it now, which is one of the things I was talking about yesterday. But it had to happen anyway. It just happened fast. And my wife, her role in my business is to assist me with all the things we're talking about today. The PA for the systems in the business, and so in terms of getting implemented, she does all of that work. So I said, this is it, this is the task we're going to go on to, and we're going to attack this as quickly as we can. So we reissued trade agreements to every single trade with our terms, and I didn't bother discussing or, tiptoeing about the subject. It was, there's our offer, it's up to you to accept. And prior to that, we'd also, when we're going down the 30-day path, we also have a system where and you might see some of the SWIMS pages in there, where we wanted the team to provide back the SWIMS process that we were going down, where they were a little bit more liable for their behaviour on the site and safety. And, weekly I'd get a list of, these ones are back, but this guy won't return the email, and haven't got this one back yet, and what are we going to do about him? I just had a gutful of that, so we just went hard and fast. And, if you hadn't returned your agreement, don't show up tomorrow. Because the alternative was much worse, in my view.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of context.
No, excellent, man. So what percentage... So you ended up flushing out some of the trades, right? What percentage got flushed out? And what were some of the biggest challenges? Because... And obviously you had the situation... your supervisor occur, it was a difficult thing. You asked guys to put their hand up. Some of them let you down, so you just went, bang, this is going to happen. So how many of them decided to see you later, and what were the most challenging situations?
Our trade team changed by 25-30% over the last 5 to 6 months, which is pretty big turnover in such a short period of time. So I just couldn't do it every year. That would be out of control. But we now have a position where we have everybody in order, everybody signed their SWIMS, it's all perfectly documented. We have 30-day position with 75% of our trade team, and everyone in a core sense is on that path, and the ones that aren't are of a much smaller nature, where we don't tend to feel that at all. At worst, they would be at 14 days. And so I've achieved the outcome there. The difficulties that have come up during the process is there's certainly disruption. I mean, you'd lose 30% of your team, it's a big disruption. But the biggest one and the most difficult was my cabinet maker, Joiner, where, and he didn't have any issues with 30 days. We already had that arrangement with him, but he pulled out of a joinery install 3 weeks before it was due, and then he was halfway through another house, and he wouldn't complete the joinery on those homes.
So what was his issue?
It was his point to me was that he was stressed and wanted to pull back in his own life. And I said, well, can't we wait another month? Another 6 weeks?
Yeah.
We had 5 projects going, and he was only in 2, so I didn't think we're trying to build the Eiffel Tower, but, I suppose that was a perfect collision between the issues I was having and his own personal life at that point, which that can happen at any time during the year. But that's been the most disruptive, because we, in terms of moving to a new joiner, those projects were immediately going to be behind. So we had client discussions to have. I had to expose my inner workings with my team to the clients, which wasn't, it's not great. And but the movement to the new joiners, all the changes and the new operators are some of the best people we now work with.
Fantastic.
That's, it's very uncomfortable to go through the process, and I don't think if you sat here you'd say, I'll drop 30% of my team. It's too big of a task. But that was some of the fallout, and the operators that have come in that we work with now that have replaced those it's like they come from tier 1 builders. Everything we are doing, they see that as normal business conduct.
Yeah.
And there's no you're not dragging someone up to a standard. They are already in a place where they set the standard within their team, and everything's itemised and documented, and they control their team. If anything, we still have my problem children are the same ones as they've always been. In some respects, that need the over-management.
There was a silver lining with that joiner as well, wasn't there, on a job, in terms of dollars?
There was, yeah. Yeah, there was. There was a joinery purchase order that came in about $25,000 lower than budget, which might be an issue with the estimating, Kurt, so it's probably not all discount. But in saying that, they came very aggressively for our business as well. We had a number of jobs stacked up so they could see the value in the relationship, and so I still negotiated hard when they came in the door rather than just sort of let them just take over in terms of pricing. So, that was quite a good result. And it's one of those things, where because we're talking about this at lunch, that we always feel committed to time because we're on a contracted period. And, you can get cornered by your trades pretty easily. And they're not there one day and they're there the next, and they're dictating back to you how the job's being run. And it can be difficult at times, because you're under pressure. But when you feel like you can make the decision, sometimes it's best to just do it.
Yeah.
Just pull the plug on that operator. I could have been much more calculated in how I did it, don't get me wrong. I think that's the thing, to be a bit more prepared about option A, B, C and D and E, and maybe consistently. What I do now is, so the joiners we've taken on, we've already got discussions going with other joiners to spread the load for next year. And, I think one of the things I've recognised about my team quite clearly is that, and we all got on well, there's good people in there, they're good guys. But business first, some of them are struggling the way I wanted to do it. And, the space we're in, we are looking for more award-winning joiners, A-plus operators that we can leverage off in our marketing as well and say, this is who we work with.
Yeah.
They're in an electronic marketing sense like we are pushing into. We can partner into some of those things. So there's a whole range of benefits, sometimes making a change.
Yeah, and it's a change for the better. It's raising the standards, basically, which is what I know you want to do for your whole business. Yeah,
and it's just, I just felt like, look, it's easier just to make the change and try and drag these. And I didn't just have one person to drag up to a level. I had a multiple. It just sucks a lot of energy.
Yeah, so
and at that point, I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was good or bad, but that's what happened.
Silver lining there, yeah. So what's the direct impact been on cash flow? Because that's obviously something that was at the top of the list in terms of why.
Yeah, well, look, it's we're comfortable there. Like my background, we were in a reasonably comfortable position personally, but we certainly still had to carry the trading terms initially with some of those new suppliers of whatever service. You don't just get a 30-day account generally. So that's probably the part where you need to be prepared for making a change. That can be, more cash up front is required to get those services done or book them in. So, that certainly tightened up in that regard. But look, we've had a really, really wet winter in Melbourne too. Anyone from Melbourne, it's been horrendous, really, for 5 months or so. Yeah. And but for me, I especially some of the information I was searching for yesterday in the boardroom was that, to me, that was more about my contractual positions that I have in place at the moment, or during that period, where we had started to slice up a lot of our payments under Method B in Victoria HIA contract, but it was still attached to a task being completed, like joinery installed, fixing completed, etc. And what a lot of the other guys are doing in my space are on a consistent monthly payment, regardless of what you get through that month. In terms of work. So, it was enough coming up, enough to get that idea and actually understand how they were getting it done and what contract they were using and so forth has made it worthwhile coming up. So, so you're learning all the time. But you certainly, I definitely rushed through the process too quickly, but I was just in a mode where I didn't care. So, so you could certainly prepare for it better than I did.
You've kindly shared the documents, guys. On page 102 to 126, you've got the whole trade pack that Brian used, and we'll also put those up in the Dropbox folder, so you'll get copies of those as well. in there's a code of conduct, right?
Yeah.
How was that? How have they responded to that, and how are you making them, uphold those standards? It was just a case of aligning with guys that have the same values.
That helps, because if you're forever, this was my world, where if you're forever arguing about those things or trying to, you're ringing people about backcharging them, then you're off path with people. Your team is not in sync with where you want to go.
Yeah.
So it's time to sort of, that's what I'm saying, to retrain everybody that's not reality. So in that respect, we've had a couple of, certainly a little bit of pushback for sure, or is this really actually going to happen, or various questions that come in. Yeah. Just, if I leave the gates unlocked, are you going to charge me $500? Or if I leave the house unlocked, is that $500? I said, well, the house could be pilfered of its appliances the next day. What do you want me to say? Welcome to my world. This, one of the epiphanies in the last couple of days is, we were talking about yesterday about ranking this builder, or ranking as a builder as number one in the process, and even today, it's just a tsunami of compliance. And I just say, welcome to my world. Get your stuff together, lock the site, check it, have a process how you do that.
Yeah.
Get it together. And that's how it has to be. So we've certainly issued a few cleaning back charges pretty quickly in that first little period.
Nice, yeah.
And that got reaction straight away. So
has he nipped it in the bud?
Yeah, well, those teams never did that again. And it would be, I think, the way that, say, if I was the carpenter that had been employed and I had 5 carpenters with me, the way that those lead guys are my main subcontractors would discuss it would be they would blame their guys. So I give them an out and say, okay, never again, but we've got to charge the fee. So, but it makes them accountable for their guys. And the site manager that's come into my business, so I have one full-time, one part-time, plus myself in the office as the construction manager, and Greg's come out of a commercial building space. So, and he's just been prodding me for months and months and months and months that they've got to be more accountable. And what do we do? How do we make them do that? And we in our office, we've been talking about it for months, that the final link in the chain about any agreement up front was that, how do we have them sign off on the job? Their task, how do we have them say it's complete? And at the moment, like probably a lot of people, it's us. We check their work. And there's a lot of time spent doing that and creating defect lists and getting people back. We have all the systems in the world. We build a trend and we can send you a photo and we can do everything well. But one of the documents I saw yesterday is it hits perfectly on the point that there's a sign-off from the head or your head contractor, subcontractor you're dealing with photos and things of that nature, that they are complete. And to me, we talk about this all the time, that I still feel like we've got so much more to create in terms of processes, and it may take years, I don't know, but we've set up a big framework over the previous 12 months, but each one of them needs to be improved and refined, every single one of them, as we go, and we're trying to pick the priority of which ones they should be.
Sure. Excellent, man. So that's been a significant win for you, big, out of the comfort zone thing, but you're reaping the rewards. 2017, what's on the cards there for setting some standards? You've wanted to raise the standard with the work that you do and basically set a whole new, create a new standard. You got inspired by a real estate agent that you spoke to. Can you just give us a quick version of that? That's interesting.
We still do spec development ourselves, so always have one project going in the background of a residential nature of some type in our local region. And we have a project next year that's got high exposure on Toorak Road in Camberwell in Melbourne. It's a very highly exposed location, and we've managed to attract an agent that I've known for about 10 years to work with us on that project, and he's, in my view, and I think even statistically, he would be the number one real estate agent in Melbourne. And he's number one for certain reasons. There's some audio that he's put out where he was interviewed about his decision to go from being pretty good and having a pretty comfortable life and being a pretty good achiever to wanting to be the best. in Australia, in Melbourne, what have you. And the process he went about to achieve that, this is now 10 years down the track from that decision for him, was, I suppose, the first step. And then secondly, the time that he spent from then on to start to get momentum where he felt like he got benefit out of that was about 3 years. So,
we were talking about it yesterday, right? It was just the decision. So this guy was probably he was earning about 230 a year, 230, 240 a year. He's 32 years old. That's good money, right, for early 30s in Melbourne, doing well, but then made a decision. Instead of just being very good at what I do, what if I became the best, like numero uno, number one, and took it up, like optimized, not just pretty good or very good, but optimum performance. And 10 years later, he did about 4 million last year, is that right?
Yeah, he personally earned 4 million.
Personally earned $4 million bucks. And I listened to the podcast. He got interviewed on it. Was it a radio show or podcast or something?
Yep.
And interesting. Just again, leadership. Just the decision was made, and then he followed through. And it doesn't happen immediately, but there's directional pull. When you make a decision, you set a goal, like Chris was talking about earlier, then you get drawn towards that outcome. But you've got to set the standard, and it's what you're doing with your business now.
It could be about the niche. It could be whatever the target is. It's a target-based decision, isn't it? So whatever it is,
you can break it down with your marketing, with your job delivery, with your team.
Yeah. So. Anyway, so he spent, and initially the way for me to describe it, I don't want to speak for him, but he went to his contact base and refined it, and now he does it on an annual basis to only deal with people that make him money.
When you say refine, he cuts away, doesn't he? He literally...
he'll pass you on to somebody else in that office at a more suitable level for your inquiry or your type of business that you do. So... or effectively saying no to that relationship. So he started with, I think the numbers were something like 300 contacts on his database, and he shifted that down to 50. And then every year, that will then increase again because of all the activity he'll do during the year, and then he'll refine again. And he personally contacts them and says, look, I'm not going to be able to work with you. Yeah. Because of these reasons, and hands them over. And some of them come grovelling, right? Because when he's got his 50 or so clients, he loves them to death. Like he contacts them, every week? Oh, there's love, all right, yeah. They get 4 million, massive love and service, yeah. Yeah, so that'll be... he is generating his relationships so that they're that valuable to him that he must deal with them on a weekly basis. So they are people that can refer business to him. They are high-value clients that... in our world, to me, they're architects, they're project managers, they're clients that you've done great jobs for that have friends, are in the same space. That's the way I tend to think about it. So one of his criteria is that they do things on his terms. Oh, absolutely. So he's got certain terms that they need to comply with. So that could tick every other box. That could be, dealing with celebrities. That could be, be able to refer everything, but they won't do things on his terms. He politely passes them on. Yeah, to me it resonated because the discussion was sort of similar about what we are having all the time. Best, second best, third best, it's all making money, and it's probably pretty good money. But, about where you're spending your time during the week in terms of money-making activities, so, and who you're talking to and where you get your business from and things of that nature. So, which for me is about, I'm using the term client nurture program. Client being referrer or client itself. Yeah. And how we contact. And what Marcus had done is he set out his whole his whole calendar for the year with his assistant. His meetings are booked for the year around those contacts. Which is so highly organised. And so you have to talk to him direct about how some of the intricacies of that really work. Yep. But, so that's the project in the background we're working on at the moment about how we go about that. And we've got we've redone our marketing plan and online objectives and so forth as well. So that's a big target for us next year. And I think initially when I came into this program, you sort of try to work out what your goals are and where you'd want to be. And I did anyway. I look back now and say, I threw out this figure, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. But 12-month experience in the system has really helped, and I feel much more clearer now about what I'm trying to achieve. So to me now it's really about margin and the type of client that we're focused on, markup, whatever you want to call it. But, 6 to 8 million for me, and I think Dwayne's sort of on a similar path, but I've got a young family of 3 kids. We've had a really difficult experience this year, and it sort of really reconfirms your priorities about life. And so how much was enough, and how much time do you want to invest in your business versus your family? And so for me, and getting into that 20% range, I'm happy. And so that's the target. And actually, our work is so local, so I have that's great as well. We've got really high exposure in our local area. They're the points we're focused on.
Beautiful. So I think it's a process of constant and never-ending improvement, that Kaizen, that Japanese principle, which is aligning with what that real estate agent's doing. And that brings us to that inevitability theory. If you do that, if you're constantly looking to improve and refine, course correct, 80-20, the laser versus the light bulb on the right areas, then inevitably you're going to get better. You're going to raise the standards, you're going to get better results. So
it's great. I mean, you're better than where you started, even though I come into a room like this today and I think, God, I've got so much work to do. That's literally how I feel. And I think, he's so much more organised than me. That's a great idea. You sort of feel like, oh, God, it's just going to be... I feel like I've got another year.
Yeah. Well,
but I think it's just that constant, just understanding it's going to be a constant improvement that you need to make all the time. And as I said, you create this system and then you say, oh, God, that's got a bit to go.
That constant improvement means getting out of your comfort zone. Like, it wasn't the most pleasurable process going through this trade pack setup, but it's necessary if you want to raise the standards, and most guys in the industry unfortunately don't. So, mates, thank you very much for sharing. Thanks, guys.